Should be live any minute now. I think we are live. Look at that. And let's just check to see. And there we are. Hey, look, we're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on X. We're live at nyjpaweather.com under the premium section. So away we go. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Well, I'm glad we loaded up on the coffee because I've certainly been using it over the past couple of weeks. Just to kind of go over things for a moment, just to understand where we are right now. I said back in October that, hey, this is going to be a very active weather pattern. Not necessarily blockbuster winter storms, but a lot of the 2 to 4, 3 to 6, 4 to 8 type of storms. And that has definitely evolved throughout January. Now we're in February, and we had one last night. That overall forecast verified pretty well, although I am annoyed that Philadelphia missed out on reaching 4 inches. It got to 3.2. I'm like, just a little bit more, a little bit more, but no, that's okay. Overall, the pattern has evolved as expected, and the model guidance has performed pretty much as expected. And so while we were waiting for the European model guidance to come in because it had a little bit of a glitch this afternoon, the GFS did not let us down in providing some very, very nice entertainment. And of course, the usual suspects put out the usual snow maps. This one I think was 12 to 18, something like that, inches of snow. But once again, no one decided to post what the 500 millibar analysis looked like. Of course, why would they? That's not as fun, right? And probably may not drive as many clicks. But this time, we're going to take a look at that 500 millibar pattern. And I'm going to tear apart exactly all the issues I'd have with a big major winter storm. Now, I do think that something's going to pop for next week. I just wouldn't be looking for some sort of storm like a KU storm, okay? But we're going to dive into all of that in just a moment. We also have a lot of observations as we have some light precipitation developing around the region. So let's take a look at those observations. Here we are. By the way, let me know what you guys think of the camera where I have it right now, where you can see me, and then all the other stuff. I may have to move that in future videos, but I figure I put it in there for now and we'll test it out. Now, the observations are very interesting because the warm air is winning this fight. Not necessarily at the mid levels just yet, and we'll take a look at that. But at the lower levels, you can see all the temperatures rising above freezing. The only area where we're seeing below freezing temperatures is in the far interior in the Catskills, most likely northwestern New Jersey, although I don't have any obs in here. But I'm willing to bet, considering the rest of the isotherms, that we're below freezing here. And of course, in the Poconos. Everyone else is rising above freezing. And with the warm air coming in, don't be surprised if we get a little bit of fog mixed in here with a very moisture dense snowfall melting at a rapid rate with temperatures in the 30s and 40s. So you got 6 inches of snow down here in southern New Jersey with warm air moving over it. That's going to lead to a reduction in visibility as fog develops. So we're going to be watching that very carefully in the overnight period. The winds might just be strong enough to prevent that, but it's going to be close. So I just want to put that out there. But the main theme here is that anyone that was concerned about any type of significant snowfall out of this warm air transport, I think that you can relax because the temperatures are rapidly rising. On the current radar, very light precipitation overall showing up here. You got some moderate rainfall down here, down towards Cape May. See the observation, and you can see light to moderate, not anything impressive here. But you can see the snowfall over here in the interior, broken up, disorganized. That's because the front of Genesis isn't really all that strong. You're also seeing the warm air transport kind of disjointed around the Appalachian Mountains. So you're not getting a wave of warm air like what we got last night, where that was one of the driving mechanisms, was this wave of warm air that was allowing the 850 millibar temperature to steadily rise, and that's what also caused our snow ratio to steadily rise from 12 to 1, 10 to 1, and ending as 8 to 1, leading to basically a cement like snowfall falling over the region. Now, a lot of this is driven by two processes. This process here is driven by isotropic lifting. We know that because of the nature and the spreading of the cloud cover here and the way that the coldest cloud tops are aligning with the strongest thermal gradient. Back here is all driven by our shortwave. Now, you might be asking yourself, Stephen, we have a negative NAO. How is this storm able to lift up towards the Great Lakes? That shouldn't happen. I'm going to explain why in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the 850 millibar temperatures. Now, these look pretty chilly, right? But they're also steadily giving way. The strongest warm air transport is clearly over the Ohio River Valley. That's where we're seeing the steadiest precipitation. Here's our next thermal gradient right here, gradually winning the fight at 850 millibars. At 925 millibars, it's even stronger, and that warm air is really starting to push its way into southern New Jersey now. Again, you got another strong push here in the Ohio River Valley. Eventually, these two are just going to close off and overwhelm any cold air that's left. And at the surface, well, your freezing line is well to the north. This is why any snow that was going to fall, not really going to accumulate. A dusting here and there, maybe an inch on some cold surfaces, but that is about it. And temperatures will only warm from here. In fact, by tomorrow morning, we'll be in the 40s. And with that, almost all your snow is going to be melted. So I hope you enjoyed it. It was nice while I was here, but it is going away. And here again is the nature of this warm air transport. Now let's take a look at the upper level winds here. This is the winds at 250 millibars. So again, this is Earth New School. Your winds 250. Let's put it on HD. Now, the question I've been getting for days now from various people is, Stephen, we have a negative NAO. Look at the statistics. It says negative NAO. How is it that we're not getting major winter storms? Why is this storm heading towards the Great Lakes? Why is the one this weekend moving towards the Great Lakes? Location, location, location. In real estate and meteorology, location is incredibly important. And in this case, the location of our negative NAO block, which statistically is a negative NAO block. You got a nice ridge here over Greenland. We'll zoom out even more. You got a nice ridge here over Greenland showing up. You got a trough here to the south of Greenland. But the problem is that it's too far north. You see, in order to have a real block, this is why you can't just look at the statistics. When you're looking at this block, in order to create a storm track to, let's say, redevelop from the Ohio River Valley to the Mid Atlantic coast, you need this feature down here, because then this feature gets suppressed and you get a blocking high over portions of New England, driving cold air south and causing a redevelopment. But with this displaced so far north, partially because it's being warped by basically a representation of the stratospheric polar vortex in the troposphere. Because of that warping, you don't get the same type of blocking mechanism. Yes, it is a west-based negative NAO. Statistically speaking, absolutely. But this is why you have to kind of go beyond that factor and take a look at the observations and say, okay, look at the overall pattern. The other problem with this pattern for tonight and also for this weekend, you don't have a ridge out west. You have something here over, certainly with a robust negative EPO that's getting ready to go positive. You have a nice ridge here over Alaska, and a nice northwesterly flow going down the Rockies and spreading out into the eastern United States. But your ridge axis is basically on the west coast. And what have we been saying all winter long? As long as you have a ridge axis on the west coast and not over the Rockies, your wavelength is way too broad and it opens up too many avenues here. You either have an exit out to the southeast, or you have a storm that's kind of lifting up towards the Great Lakes and then redeveloping. So that's why we're not seeing the blockbuster winter storms that you might have seen 10 to 15 days ago on the model guidance while everyone was looking at the GFS and European and focusing in on day 13 and 14. They didn't look at, and the reason why I wasn't all amped up about it is I looked at this 500 millibar pattern, which was very nicely forecasted by both models, but the surface depictions were just all off. And this is typically what happens with a lot of these models. This is why you can't use them as a crystal ball. You look at these clues and say, wait a minute, one of these two do not make sense. Either the 500 millibar pattern is right or the surface projection is right, but they're not both right. Something is messed up here. So that's why in this pattern, it's favorable for storms, favorable for cold weather, but not necessarily favorable for major winter storms up and down the I-95 corridor. So with that, take a look at our HRR guidance, and you can see for the rest of this evening, the rain will gradually take hold. I would be very, very cautious of anyone up towards the Poconos, like around Mount Pocono and towards northern Connecticut, the Hudson River Valley, for some slick conditions overnight. So if you're driving early tomorrow morning, use some caution, take your time, and just watch out for some of that freezing drizzle that's going to be out there with temperatures right around 31, 32 degrees. But even that goes over to rain, and then we pretty much clear out by tomorrow afternoon with just some drizzle and a few scattered showers around the region. Temperatures, well, hey, let's pull that up. Why the hell not? Let's go pull that up right now. See if we have that choice here. Oh, here we go. So what will our temperatures be in 18 hours? How about the 40s and 50s? Not bad. Just a little hint of spring. Just a small, small little hint. And we'll get another one setting up for Sunday with temperatures possibly reaching 60 degrees. And then we fall back down to 15. So, yeah, it's that time of year where everyone gets sick because we go from 15 to 60 to 15 to 60. So, you're going to need your jacket and then some shorts, or shorts and jacket, or something of that nature. And then you'll be covered for the weather pattern over the next 2 weeks. So, of course, this brings us to what about the rest of this winter? What about the storm potential for next week? And hey, are there any hints for March? So everyone has been focusing on the extremely stretched, almost split polar vortex. And it delivered. It's got the cold air, it's got the storms, it's got the stormy weather pattern. Maybe not to what you may have wanted, but certainly it has produced. What about the rest of this winter, which is essentially what, 2, 3 weeks? Well, for the rest of February, it's certainly going to remain chilly. Okay, so unfortunately, if you thought the cold air was going to be going away in February, it is not. We're going to be on a bit of a roller coaster. Like I said, we'll have a couple days in the 50s and 60s, and a couple of days where we're struggling to break 20. But here's the good news. When I look at the evolution of this polar vortex, and I called this back in January when I looked at the pattern and then made the forecast for February, with this extreme stretching, there's always going to be an equal and opposite reaction. All right. So you had the action, it's in place. There must be a contraction because that's how the polar vortex works. That's how physics works. So with that contraction, we know there's going to be a warm up. Now, the polar vortex could stretch again. Absolutely in March. Absolutely. Mid March, we could see another stretch. And that could produce colder weather for mid to late March. But by then, your sun angle, which does matter, will be significantly higher, which means any of your polar air masses dropping south, they're going to moderate very quickly. And if you're looking for snowfall in that situation, you basically have to thread the needle in development, timing, and intensity. Good luck. Can it happen? Sure. But I wouldn't be making a bet on it. It's not the best thing. So, what this does tell me is that early March is going to feature more Pacific air masses than polar air masses. And the polar air masses we do get are going to hit and retreat very quickly with this signal. So, in short, if you're looking for winter storms, the clock is ticking. And I would say, let's see, February 12th right now. By February 25th, if we don't have a major winter storm, the one that everyone keeps on pining for in the GFS and long range European, then we're not getting one at all this winter. And quite frankly, that was basically the idea I had. A lot of weak to moderate winter storms, but not the blockbuster. With that said, if you're going to get one, it's going to be during this influence here. So when we take a look at the 500 millibar pattern, okay, now this part around the 17th, why would it allow you to cut up towards the coast? Well, again, your upper level low is a little bit too far north, and it opens up the track up towards central New York, so, and then a redevelopment towards the Gulf of Maine, but it also allows cold air to flush in. So this is, again, another period where you most likely not end up with a winter storm. Then we get to the 20th through the 22nd. This is an interesting pattern because of the upper level low that's trying to develop on all the model guidance. But just taking a look at the 500 millibar pattern and not getting into details on rain, snow, all that stuff, this pattern right here screams of a transitioning positive NAO. Now, a little bit of a note here. Your best potential for winter storms is actually when the NAO is transitioning. So this is why I'm leaving the door cracked open here. Okay, it would be foolish for me to discount this completely. But the other problem with this forecast is, as far as a major, huge winter storm for the entire region, my ridge axis is all wrong. It's on the west coast again. We've been through this before where it shows a major region wide winter storm and it ends up more with a fast moving progressive feature cutting off the mid Atlantic coast. So I wouldn't really get I wouldn't trust anything that shows a blockbuster storm. Anything, once again, of the 12 to 16-inch variety that you might see on snow maps floating around. And I sure as hell wouldn't be advertising that, hey, major winter storm showing up, like some YouTubers are doing out there, unfortunately. Yes, I know they're going to get a lot of clicks. They might get 15, 20,000 clicks, but sir, you have no credibility and it's just ridiculous, you know. But what are you going to do? You can't control the world, right? Now, what this all does in terms of the air masses involved here is that through February, again, we got plenty of potential for these Arctic surges and then relaxations. But then as we head towards the end of the month, look what happens here. Your Arctic air masses tend to get more locked up in Canada. Yeah, they'll be available, but they won't be able to drop south like they have been. And you're going to get more and more of an influence coming in from the Pacific. Now, again, I'm not saying we won't see any cold days in March. I want to make that very clear. What I'm saying is that these cold air masses are going to be very transient, much like what we saw in early December and in November, where they come in and then they moderate quickly. So that is basically the signal I'm starting to see here. Now, in terms of our winter storm potential, this is the GFS first of all. This is the one that produced a nice huge storm signal right there, right? So wow, everyone's focusing in on the surface map. Let's point out all the problems with this 500 millibar pattern. One, no real ridge axis in the west. Two, your upper level low has a positive tilt here, which somehow is forced into a negative tilt, but there's no shortwave in the back end to cause this tilt. So there's no reason for this to actually happen like this. It's funky, to put it in the best terms possible. It doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, well, what causes this to shift like this? See, what you need is for this disturbance to dive into the back end of it to make that tilt. It really doesn't do that. So that right there should be suspect because it physically doesn't make any sense. Your best divergence and diffluence is all setting up to support strong warm air transport. So the idea of widespread snowfall or wintry mix becomes more of a challenge because your air mass that's in place is getting warmed out ahead of this storm, and then you have to drive cold air in behind the upper level low while keeping the precipitation in place. And anyone who has watched winter storms know the most difficult thing to pull off is a precipitation event where you have to have cold air race in, change all the precipitation over to frozen sleet or snow, and then accumulate after that while overcoming the boundary layers. That's a lot to nail down. So can it happen? It's happened before, 1886, for example. But that kind of tells you how difficult it is to pull off in those type of situations. You really have to have everything evolve just right. So that is the GFS. I know you probably didn't see the 500 millibar pattern. You just saw the big L and all the snow and the snow maps. But this is how funky the 500 millibar map looks on the GFS. Now let's take a look at the European. Now the European, again, no real ridge. Here's our upper level low. Has a slight negative tilt to it already because of the interaction here of this short wave. So it marches its way through and it continues to move through the mid-Atlantic. Now, a couple of things that are a little funky with this is the polar jet stream is not in alignment with the subtropical jet stream. And so you're getting a lot of pushback between this ridge here, this trough interacting with this trough. This to me looks like more of a sheared situation. This looks to me that once we get under 120 hours, in the forecast, that this might actually be much weaker than what's showing up here. Because typically, unless you have perfect interaction, which is what this is trying to show, typically something like this gets sheared apart. So again, this is why, as a meteorologist, you don't just look at the models, you also look at, well, what can go wrong here? What seems a bit out of place, right? So you have to kind of be a detective, even if it's like AI. Okay, I know that everyone's getting all excited about the AI European becoming operational. I think in before the end of this month. Here's the thing: the only thing that AI does is add a layer of, let's say, quality control, that it takes out some of the funky errors, like when we see major convective feedback and you get those bullseyes. It'll take that out of the equation and it'll be better at filling in some missing data based on the surrounding data. So that certainly is going to help with the accuracy of the model. But you still have to do this analysis and say, does this make sense? Does keeping this strong upper level low like this make sense in this environment? And typically, this ends up being much weaker. So when you have all those factors, and then you take a look at 850 millibars during this time period, again, we have precipitation coming in. Let's walk this through. Tonight we have precipitation coming in with strong warm air transport, right? So we got those rain snow showers changing over to rain. On Saturday evening, we have again snow developing over the interior, rain along the coast, widespread rainfall on Sunday, temperatures in the 50s. We crash back again into the teens and 20s for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, here comes our next storm. Now, look what it does at 850 millibars. The European guidance during this time period has a strong upper level low. Look what it does at 850. Something's not right here because the 500 millibar low is back here at 216, right? 216 hours. Here we are, 216 hours. There's our upper level low. Okay, let's see. Make sure here. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. This doesn't make any sense. Why is this out here like this? This tells me there's a lot of error going on here with this model guidance. So wait a bit. Let's get under, let's at least get under 168 hours and see if, because if this is just if this is just this disjointed, excuse me, then what this tells me is that this storm is getting pulled out to the east very fast, and that sheared idea is more likely. The 850 millibar forecast is correct here because this is sheared to hell. This is just a very disorganized system. So I know everyone wants to see winter storms, and well, most people want to see winter storms, but I take a look at it, and again, you have the Arctic air in place, you have your storm, so there's that signal. So certainly the potential for that storm showing up in the 850 millibar gradient, but I just don't like the setup here. Again, here's the warm air surging for tonight. And then here's the next surge for Saturday evening. Look how fast this cold air gives way on Saturday evening. So even with the snow coming in, it'll most likely rapidly change over to rain in this environment, except for maybe the Poconos and Catskills on Saturday night. And so just to kind of walk things through, our precipitation changing over to rain tonight. Here we go on Saturday evening. I'm betting a lot of this is very wet snow, and maybe you might get an inch out of it in the highest elevations. And then we go over to rain, very beneficial rain, by the way, which we would need. And then our Arctic air mass is in place, and there's our next storm. And look at this error. Holy crap. Okay, let's, after we went through everything else at 500 millibars, if this doesn't tell you there's some serious error problems with the model projection during this time period for either the GFS or the European, just take a look at this. You got a closed low here, you got a closed low here, you got rapid intensification, a clear sign of convective feedback error here, 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 and here, warping of the pressure field. So this is just a warped mess here. And then you have your precipitation shield out here with an elongated 500 millibar low. The only thing I could see that might actually be reality here in this situation, and I'm not saying this will happen, but if this is reality, and then this is reality, excuse me, yeah, there we are. That 500 millibar solution, if this is reality on the European guidance, and this is reality on the European guidance at 850 millibars, the only thing I can assume here in this environment is that you got some sort of Norland trough to deal with. Because basically what this is showing is stretching of the atmosphere and pulling and tugging, kind of like taffy. That might explain this. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that might be the physical representation of what you're trying to see here. That the model guys is trying to deal with these different pressure levels with basically you have your surface low at this level, 850 millibar in this level, but it's warped, but a very strong 500 millibar pattern upper level low here. So what's happening is that you're getting a tug. So the atmosphere is getting stretched like this in a vertical, and so what that does is lead to a line of heavy precipitation. That might be what this is trying to show. Because otherwise, then you just have a ton of convective feedback. But if you think of the Norland trough idea, then what it's trying to do is create these surface lows that's really a disjointed trough. And then you see these waves marching in along the trough like that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but maybe that might be the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing in this guidance. So, pretty interesting stuff. We'll put the surface map up and we'll start to dive into some of the questions here. Of course, as always, we first answer all of the questions in the premium chat and then we check out what's going on in social media land. So let's see what we got here tonight. Okay, after Sunday, do you see any more winter storm potential before the end of the month, perhaps as the polar vortex starts contracting? Yep, this is from Card. He read my mind before we started. Yeah, I mean, again, I think this storm on the 20th and 21st is going to be our last best shot to seeing a region-wide snowfall. Let's see. Now your video box is blocking. I hope not. I think, let's see here. It's not too bad. I'm gonna have to make some adjustments on that, but we'll work on it. We'll work on it, and hopefully it will correct it. See if I can move it down here. Maybe that might work. But as always, it's something that we're always gonna work on. So I moved it to the left corner. So there we go. Sorry about that. Any chance of getting a western ridge in a good spot as a polar jet starts to retreat, or is it pretty much wait till next year? Honestly, I would say pretty much wait till next year, which could be interesting. There could be signs of a weak El Nino in place by next year, so we'll see how that plays out. Saw SBC Day 4 has a 15% chance of severe weather in the southeast. Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be very interesting down there for active severe weather. Let's see what we got on YouTube. Let's see here. Let's see if there's any good questions here. It's raining for me and Kate May. That's Carl. Carol. Let's see. Why are the AO and NAO going positive after the 20th, despite the MJO going into a cold phase and strat warming? Okay, so first of all, we don't really have strat warming. Okay, really what's happening is the stratosphere is getting back to near normal. The stratosphere is very cold right now, which is very interesting considering how stretched the polar vortex is. The polar vortex is strong, but it's being stretched, right? There's warming taking place, but it's more towards the seasonal average than anything else. As far as the MJO, it doesn't really have a direct impact on the NAO and the Arctic Oscillation. Really, it's your stratospheric factors. Your MJO in the cold phases basically means that it plays nice with the polar jet stream much more between the subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream. So it is the MJO to me is better in terms of temperature analysis in the spring and summer than it is in the winter. The MJO to me is better in determining storm potential um, in the winter because then it interacts with the polar jet stream much better in phases 7, 8, 1, and 2 than not, right? So you don't want to use the MJO to forecast indices that involve more of the influence of the polar vortex and stratospheric anomalies. Let's see. Why are you comparing the Euro 0Z into 12Z? It wasn't 0Z and 12Z. But I will double check that. That's the GFS. Check it again. Yeah, that's the 12Z. Oh, okay. There we go. My fault. And okay, so let me just cover this real fast with the European right here. Okay, so now the 12's European. Let me just backtrack on this. Looks even more sheared out. So that's good. That's actually better. This is actually a better depiction on the 12Z. So that's my fault, but still the same idea. You're getting this stronger upper level low, and it's getting sheared out even more on the recent 12Z guidance. So that was my faux pas. Sorry about that. I thought it had changed over, but it did not. But still, the overall theme, everything I said pretty much is still aligned. That this feature more likely is getting sheared out, and it's still more likely a storm exiting out, which honestly, in terms of this depiction, I think that this is warped and still doesn't make sense unless it's a Norland trough. But I do like the idea of this being further south and east. Let's see here. It's not worth looking at the next week until we get through the current storm and get inside with 168 hours. That is true, but I got enough emails about the next storm, about next week, that I wanted to at least answer that and cover it. Do you know a site that shows the temperature patterns for the MJO during different months in different and some states? Absolutely. It's actually in the CPC. Hold it 1 second. Let me try to pull it up. Okay. So if you go to cpcnsep.noaa.gov or just Google cpc.nsep, then you go to MJO and then you scroll down and let's see here. I think it's down here. Yeah, there we go. Composites. Then you could study the composites of temperatures and also precipitation. So there's all sorts of statistical analysis here, and then you could look at the monthly theme. So basically, this will be if you're in February or at the very between January, February, March at that average, but basically in February, in March, and so on and so forth. So it kind of gives you the different themes. Let's see here. Uh, can you explain your line charts? I'm not sure what that means. All right. So is there anything on X or YouTube, or not YouTube, but X or Facebook? All right. What do we got here? Still some chances of smaller events if we take a large storm off the table for the year. I think next week is the last shot of even a smaller event. After that, once the polar vortex starts to contract, I think that we have more rain events than anything else. Um, I can't rule out like a rogue storm, especially over the interior in March and April until the polar vortex completely collapses and fades away. But that is pretty much about it. I'm getting some requests about the European new 18Z. So let's take a look at that while we're seeing if there's anything new. The 18Z is starting to come out. And what do we got here? Um, let's see. Will Pocono and Camelback Mountains be awash this weekend? When would rain end on Sunday? Yeah, it's not looking good up there. Unfortunately, it's going to be pretty good rainfall even up there for this weekend. Sunday is going to be a very warm day. What about the MJO going into 8-1 and 2? The MJO going into 8-1 and 2 increases the potential for storminess. But a lot of people make the assumption that just because you're in the positive, you're in a favorable MJO state, that automatically means a storm for your backyard. That MJO state also supports a winter storm in Virginia, just as much as it supports one in Boston or New York City. It just means that we're in a favorable state. It guarantees nothing. Let's see here. Any chance of getting a Western Ridge in a good spot? I think I already answered this from card, but I don't really see it, to be honest with you, this year. I honestly don't. Light snow already in northern New Jersey. Yeah, that's not going to last too long. That's the good thing. One thing's for sure about mid next week, there is a lot of cold air for it. 850 millibar temperatures are cold. Oh, yeah, cold air won't be lacking. The issue at hand is whether or not the shortwave interaction is going to work out. Steve, when will warmer temperatures start to show up? We'll start to get our first hints this weekend, but I think that sustained warmth won't be in place until we get past March, probably March 3rd, when the influence of the contracting polar vortex really starts to show up. How much rain are you anticipating tomorrow and over the weekend? Enough to start helping restore water table. Uh, I want to be careful about this only because the model guidance has been really aggressive with the QPF, but it hasn't panned out all the time. I do like a quarter to a half an inch at the very least for both of these events. There is signs that we could actually get as much as an inch of rain, but I'm a bit skeptical of that based on how fast these systems are moving. But I certainly like a quarter to a half an inch out of these, which quite frankly is kind of the rainfall that we'd want to have. We don't want to go over an inch here because then it's just not going to get into the water table. The best thing we can have actually are the snowfalls that we've been having, where you're getting, you know, the QPF about maybe a half an inch, but it's 4 or 5 inches of snow that is gradually melting into the ground, which is perfect. Would you say this winter was a wasted potential for the East Coast? No, not at all. We had plenty of storms. I mean, remember a couple of years ago we had none. What do we got? Let's see here. All three models have the storm around the 20th. Yeah. So, okay. So, yes, all three models have the storm. We've been here before, guys. Right? Let's take a step back. How many times, 7 to 10 days out, all the models have shown a blockbuster storm, right? And I'm not saying there won't be a storm. What I'm saying is that keep your expectations low and then you won't be disappointed. Because the expectations of a major blockbuster storm, it just doesn't fit the 500 millibar pattern. The whole winter hasn't fit the 500 millibar pattern for that. Okay? And when you're missing key pieces to support that type of amplification, you need to step back. The pattern that we're looking at in all the models is an upper level low, moving into the east in a confluent weather pattern between a polar and subtropical jet stream, which typically leads to a sheared out system. Now, that could support a stressed out low pressure system, an inverted trough, uh, a period of precipitation, absolutely. Something displaced to the south, and maybe you get another moderate snowfall. Absolutely, it's a good chance. I'm just saying that if you're seeing an output of like 10 to 20 inches going from Philadelphia to Boston, I probably would be very, very skeptical of such a solution. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. Why do negatively tilted troughs lead to stronger storms? Because the nature of a negative tilt leads to stronger divergence and diffluence aloft, which is basically stretching in the atmosphere, which leads to stronger rising air. Also, a negatively tilted trough is more favorable for a storm to basically slow down and do that pivot, which enhances and extends the heavy precipitation time period. So that's how you get a lot of your classic radar signatures where the precipitation starting and then you kind of see that pivot in the precipitation shield that then works west to east. That's what causes that is a negative tilt in the trough. We got more questions. Let's see here. Uh, I think I got. Oh, here we go. Snow gradually melting is a good thing. Great for crops and growth. Agreed, Aaron. I know your spring forecast is this Friday. Yep, I'm working. I got the basics done. But any early thoughts on summer? Hot, humid, wet, dry. We're just skipping seasons all over the place. Um, I kind of want to wait to see what exactly we're dealing with this Encinal state. If we start trending towards a warm neutral state, that would suggest certainly more active severe weather around here. Um, I wouldn't say heat waves, but certainly some strong cold fronts would be in play. But that's if we actually start seeing warm anomalies. I'm not convinced of that yet. The model guidance is kind of spread all over the place. Oh, we got another one on YouTube. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, holy smokes. Someone actually, wow. Oh, I forgot about that. I got that access where they can actually, pay for a question. Uh, will rain be gone by Sunday afternoon at Camelback? I have tickets on the line for tubing, trying to figure out rescheduling times. Oh, wow. Well, okay, Placo. Gotcha. All right. So, hey, look, they paid. I respect that, but thank you. Absolutely. Uh, I think a lot of the rainfall will be based in the morning. I can't rule out lingering scattered showers in the afternoon, but the steady stuff will be done. Okay. But definitely some scattered showers. And it's going to be warm. You might be able to do the tubing with skiing and like just have a t-shirt on. So I don't know. You might like that. I'm not sure. But the steady. I don't know whether or not they would still cancel that because you have lingering showers around. But I can tell you the steady rainfall will be done. It's been 3 winters since we had a blockbuster winter storm. Oh yeah, absolutely. The last one, January 2022. Let me tell you something. We're going to move into a period where we're going to get a string of blockbuster winter storms. Not this year, but in the next year or so. And when we do, everyone's going to be tired of it, and they're all going to complain to me that it's happening. So I'm just waiting for that to happen.
Just one little FYI.
Yeah,
Even with a paid question, you still have to wait your turn.
yeah, yeah, yep, absolutely. But we get there. Hey, look, there's a lot going on, but I try to get to everybody as quickly as I can. Dylan's already getting hyped up for severe thunderstorm season. Oh, it's going to be one of those years, isn't it, Dylan? It's going to be every day. When are we getting a tornado? Um, I'm thinking the spring's going to be focused more towards the Ohio River Valley this year and the mid Mississippi River Valley. It looks like a major pattern change is about to happen. Absolutely. When you see the air pattern going from cold phase to warm phase, usually that produces a major storm. No, it definitely it's definitely more possible, which is why I'm not ruling out the storm potential. What I'm saying is that even though it is doing that transition, you still need some fundamental factors in place to support a major storm, even when there is that transition. One of those fundamental factors is a ridge axis over the Rockies because you need to have the amplification. Otherwise, you just have storms either passing to your northwest or well to the southeast. So, yes, it does increase the potential, which is why I have my eye out for that time period. And I completely agree with that potential. But if the 500 millibar pattern is as forecasted as what we're seeing in this guidance, then you're looking at a sheared out solution because that ridge axis around the Rockies that has to be in place earlier in the week is what supports your amplification to limit and even negate any type of shearing influence from the rest of the pattern. Let's see here. Active sun moving to and from solar max the last 3 years. Yeah, now we're going to be moving toward the solar minimum. In fact, we've seen now a steady drop in the number of sunspots over the past 4 months. Still relatively active, but if the trend continues, we should start to feature more solar minimum type characteristics the end of this year and especially in 2026. It's going to be an interesting time, that is for sure. Good coffee. 18Z is bizarre. 18Z GFS. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Well, let's take a look and see what it has here. 18Z GFS. Let's see. Where are you? Here you are. We'll take a look at the 500 millibar pattern here. And we'll zoom in a little bit. Let's see what it's trying to do. Well, everything looks pretty good through this weekend. Oh, look at that. Let's just defy all the laws of physics and just stretch this out like as if it's some sort of silly putty. This is just baby frolic. This is ridiculous right here. What is this? This is just insane. You can't have this. Negate, throw it out, throw it in the trash. Let's see what else does it do. Well, it decides to stretch it out, form a new upper level low, drop that through. Let's see here. Random upper level low forming in Canada. Intense. This is convective feedback error. Let's see what's next. Oh, it drops another one through. Why not? Throw it in there. And this one, okay, look what it does here. It tries to form an upper level low and sets up, in terms of a 500 millibar upper level low, sets up a perfect signal for a I-95 winter storm, right? Here's the problem with this idea. Nothing off to the west of it would support such a solution. Okay, so first of all, as this is diving in, right, you rapidly lose, you briefly have your ridge axis here, which allows for your amplification. But the problem here is that for some reason you're already getting breaks in the ridge, like this signal out here and this signal here. So it doesn't remain in place, right? So once this gets blown off, this can't remain negative like this. What should happen is that this basically maintains and weakens and shears off because this signal here would push this out here. It's cute though. I'm sure it'll make a nice surface map. And then it tries to do the same thing, but now your trough axis is on the East Coast, so anything that forms out here has to be out here. So let's see what that looks like at the surface. And there's one, that. See, now it has a much weaker reflection here around the 20th. This actually looks very similar to the European. And then let's see what it tries to do. Yeah, there's our storm, but it doesn't make any sense whatsoever in the 500 millibar pattern. But the only thing you'll see is most likely someone taking a screenshot of this and playing it up for fun. Rain we need. Severe weather we gladly pass on. I agree. I don't need tornadoes. Why has the HRR been so bad this winter? It has its moments and at times it can be bad. A lot of that I think has to do with the type of observational data that we're putting in. One thing that AI could actually help with in terms of the HRR, I think that would be a good application for it because then it can remove some of the erroneous surface data that gets put into the model because that's what's getting updated every hour. So if there's any error in that data, that's what creates a lot of chaos with the HRR. So what you want to do is when you use the HRR, it gives you it's like about a 2 hour lag. So you want to compare that to the current radar and then go from there. But a lot of times it gets some bad data fed into it, and so bad data in, bad data out. So that's pretty much what we're seeing. Let's see here. How can during the storm? Let's see if there's anything else on X or anything. What is the line? Let's see here. I messaged you the line chart. Did you? I'm not sure what message. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that means. It looks like as though the negative QBO is beginning to descend nicely. Yep, it looks like it is definitely. I think that a negative QBO will be in place by the time we get to the fall and in next winter, and combine that with a weak El Nino, things could get interesting next winter. Let's see. How can during some winters we easily get big winter storms along the coast, while other winters like this one we fail to deliver anything more than a 1 to 3 inch event? Several factors. One, your polar vortex is too strong. Two, the QBO state was still in the wrong state, positive QBO. Three, the the poor development of the Enso state, which eventually technically somewhat got into a La Nina. Um, let's see here. It didn't really establish itself, so it led to a disjointed 500 millibar pattern. I'm not sure of any. Thank you very much for your advice last week on our trip to Cleveland, to New Jersey. We are home, New Jersey, safe and sound. And thank you. Awesome, Christopher. I'm glad that everything worked out. That is outstanding. Unfortunately, I don't have the capability of looking at my messages while I'm doing this, Larry. So I do apologize. Sorry, but I I don't see the line chart or whatever might be talked about. Let's see here. So I'm not sure exactly or which. I have a lot of different message services, so I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Unfortunately, um, so I'm sorry, but I don't see it anywhere. But we'll try to follow Larry. If I see it later on tonight or tomorrow, I will definitely cover it for next week if I come across it. Is there anything else on X or YouTube or Facebook?
Because as usual, Facebook has to knock me out of everything all
That's all right. Facebook is trash.
the time. It is.
But you know what? We love you, Facebook. For
Oh
those of you
no,
who are on there, we well, all
I
right.
don't. I think
My wife does not. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find any messages. I don't know.
I don't
All
have
right, so
access to any of that stuff, so
what do we got
there's
here?
just a little comment about the.
Radar looks weak right now for this storm. What the one for tonight? Well, yeah. I mean, this isn't a major. The only reason why it's something worth to note is that look, when it comes to driving and a little bit of ice, you need to talk about it, right? You need to have some notification. You need to put out advisories on it. Because if you don't, you're going to leave people in a dangerous situation, which we don't want to do. We'll take a look at the radar right now. Again, we have very light precipitation going on here. This snow that's showing up in Monmouth County, right? It's more like a rain snow mix. You have temperatures in the mid 30s already and rising. And of course, we have our easterly wind as well. We do have a nice little light snow in northern New Jersey, but even there, temperatures are rising above freezing, which means any type of treatment you have down is pretty much going to prevent any snow accumulation. So I think we covered quite a bit tonight, and we're getting ready to what? Oh, one more on YouTube. I was ready to shut down. What is a negative NaO? Oh boy, that is a long. I. That's like a 3 hour discussion. Uh, okay, a negative. Oh Jesus Christ! All right. Well,
So
a negative NaO to explain it very, very quickly, but I would suggest going to the AMS glossary to really look this up, is a type of 500 millibar pattern where you get a ridge over Greenland and an upper level low or trough around the Canadian Maritimes or generally south of Greenland. It's a type of pattern that leads to a slowing down of the 500 millibar pattern and a better potential for low pressure systems to form over the coastal waters and cold air to be locked into the coastal plain. It's not a guarantee, and there's two versions of a negative NAO. One where the upper level ridge on Greenland's on the eastern side, and one that's on the western side. So the one that goes on the western side and builds into northeast Canada is the one that is more favorable for winter storms. The one that's on the eastern side with an upper level low towards Iceland features more of a progressive weather pattern, and storm tracks are typically off the southern mid-Atlantic or even southeast coasts. So that is the very brief overview of the NAO pattern. Then there's a positive NAO, which basically has a big old upper level low over Greenland and a very progressive pattern over the eastern United States. So, with that, I think that is it for tonight. We covered quite a bit. Outstanding questions, guys. Outstanding, great questions. I really appreciate it. As always, you guys make the channel. So anytime you guys add a lot of the questions and whatnot, I really, really appreciate it because it helps out quite a bit and sometimes makes me think of something I never even thought of before. So thank you as always. We'll continue to keep an eye on these storms. Next week, well, let me just check my calendar here. Let's see here. Yeah, next week we're actually going to have live chat on the 20th rather than the 19th, as it is somebody's birthday.
What are we having the day before?
Or you want to do it the day before?
That's what you told me.
Okay, all right, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it on Tuesday. Actually, probably work out better. Actually,
Saying that's what you told me. You didn't
okay.
confirm with me on the change. So.
Okay, so we're going to do it on Tuesday rather than Wednesday, because we're going to have his birthday celebration with my wife, and we're going. Where are we going? Where would you like to go?
No idea.
No idea. I have no idea, but we will go somewhere. We will have fun. We will not be here, but we'll be here on Tuesday. So definitely that's going to be fun. I think what we should do is go to a circus. What do you think? We hang out with some clowns and stuff. I don't know. I don't know. We'll find a random circus. That'll be fun. I don't know. We'll find something out. But as always, thank you for joining us. And hey, stay safe out there.